So we're back with the other for the Lady and the Tramp video. This part will be about the sequel that they made, the 2001 sequel, Lady and the Tramp 2, Scamps Adventure, which centers around their son, Scamp, and then on the live action movie. Slight bit in regards to like the miscellaneous stuff that Lady and the Tramp has been in. There's not much. As I said, they have cameos in House of Mouse, and there's parodies, of course, all over the place of the spaghetti scene, both in Disney itself and outside of Disney, because it's such a fun thing to parody. One of the other two places that it tends that Lady and the Tramp has popped up is in Kingdom Hearts. It's not like you run around in the town or you like get turned into a dog or something like what happens in like the Lion King area where like Sora gets turned into a lion and such. For the Lady and the Tramp, the only real thing for Lady and the Tramp that's in Kingdom Hearts is in Traverse Town. There is a fountain. This fountain, it's very pretty. It is a Lady and the Tramp fountain. Just part of the areas you run around in, and I think at some point one of the tasks that you complete lights up the fountain, I think. Not a huge thing, just something small, not too much. And there is a Lady and the Tramp reference in Once Upon a Time, whether or not it's necessarily 100% supposed to be Lady and Tramp who are depicted, it's still there. In one of the episodes, and I think it's the fourth season, Hook takes Emma on a date to an Italian restaurant in Storybrooke. There's a whole thing that happens with Hook, but that's not part of this part. They go to the restaurant, and there is a couple at the restaurant who are doing the spaghetti trick. The spaghetti sharing it until you kiss. I'm assuming that's just supposed to be a reference to Lady and the Tramp. I don't know if it's 100% stated that is supposed to be Lady and Tramp or not. I could be wrong, and it could be them, or it could just be, well, we're at an Italian restaurant and Lady and the Tramp and there's spaghetti, so you two, spaghetti kiss. That could just be what it is. I don't know. That's about really the only miscellaneous things that Lady and the Tramp stuff tends to pop up in the cameos I mentioned in 101 Dalmatians and Oliver and Company, of course. Not too much beyond that. In regards to the sequel, as I said, it came out in 2001. It takes place it starts on July 2nd, 1911, which if you follow the track of the way that the original movie goes, that lands about right. Yeah, that lands about right. Because it's 1909, Christmas 1909, at the beginning of the first movie. Then you get a year, because you go through winter again. And then you get to the next Christmas, so that's 2 years. So that would be, they may have fudged that a little bit. But you have the Darling family out for a stroll. You have Lady and Tramp, and they have 4 pups, same as the end of the last movie. 3 that look like Lady, and 1 that looks like Tramp and acts like Tramp. That would be Scamp. They have 3 daughters. Annette, who has the blue collar, Colette, who has the red collar, and Danielle, who has the white collar. And then, of course, we have Scamp, troublesome and only boy. They're out for a walk. The whole town is getting ready for the big 4th of July celebration. You see Aunt Sarah there with her annoying cats. You see lots of people getting ready. As we walk around, we see like Joe and Tony in front of Tony's, restaurant, and they've got like American themed pasta, which is adorable, and such. And you have, Jim Deere and Darling are, of course, there. Obviously, they're out walking the dogs. And you see Junior. Him and Scamp very much seem to get along quite well. Tramp. I'm going to get those flipped around a lot in this, but I'll make sure that I try to do the right one at the right time. Tramp seems to have gotten quite accustomed to the life of being a house dog. Doesn't mean he's forgotten what it means, of course, to be a street dog, because he knows what it's like to be a street dog. He was a street dog for the majority of his life, so he knows how hard it can be. Get them all back to the house. You know, it's time to give all the dogs a bath. Uh, the three girls love getting baths. If I remember correctly, and I'll go over the voices a little bit at the end, because it's a sequel that was done, like 40 some years later. It's obviously most of the actors and actresses that did the original voices are either all grown up now if they did any voices of kids. Not that there were that many kid voices in the original movie, but most of the others have all passed away, unfortunately, or are much too old to be able to do the voices. So, of course, they had to do recasts and such, and I'll kind of go over those at the end. And then, of course, when I get to live action, of course, I will go over the voices in the live action. But in regards to this one, in the sequel, yeah, all the family is happy in the house. Well, most of the family's happy in the house. Scamp does not like the idea of having to be, trapped in the house, all the rules and everything. He is very much his father's son in that aspect. He doesn't like the idea of confinement. Admittedly, Tramp's coming from the other end of things where he knows what it's like to be on the street, to have to scrounge for food, to have to worry about the dog catcher. So yeah, that's not the best thing for Tramp, and not a good thing for Scamp either. And so we get a lot of that, and then it gets time, and Tramp and Scamp kind of play a little bit, and then Tramp tells him to go play with Junior, and Scamp apparently likes to chew on Jim Deere's hats quite a bit. He has like a collection of them that Scamp has chewed up, which I just find adorable. It was like, wouldn't putting them up there just kind of encourage him? Because it's like you're hanging his, like a trophy case type thing. They kind of give him a little bit of leeway because he's a puppy. He's, still growing and everything. And then, of course, we get a moment where, Scamp has to get a bath. Scamp does not like baths, but... and we get a lot of stuff with, he gets gets his bath, and then unfortunately things happen and he gets all dirty and runs through the house, leaving muddy paw prints everywhere and breaking a few things, which gets him in a lot of trouble, and Jim Deere has to put him outside on the chain in the backyard by the doghouse. Jim Deere doesn't really like doing this to Scamp. He doesn't want to have to punish Scamp. The Darling family very much seem to love their dogs, which is a good thing. And he feels sorry about having to do that to Scamp, but he just wants Scamp to learn that you can't act that way in a house. And so we get Scamp out in the backyard complaining, howling, and we get this great scene of Lady and the Tramp. And this is something I didn't go over in regards to the Bambi movies and the Bambi sequel and the two Cinderella sequels. One of the things that they very much do in regards to the sequels, since they're made so many years later, I mean, later on when we get to like the Lion King sequels and the Aladdin sequels and the Little Mermaid sequels, when we get to those in the late 80s and the 90s, you don't have as much of a problem with this because it's like, okay, they went from one production, maybe waited 2 years, 3 years, and then they went to the next one in regards to still being able to use a lot of that stuff and such. But when it comes to Lady and the Tramp, they basically had to go through and like either redraw or refine all of the backgrounds that they had for the original movie to then use again as the same set pieces in this movie. In regards to the backyard, in regards to the inside of their house, even the outside of their house to a degree, to make sure that it still fits what they had for the original movie. I mean, the Darlings may have redecorated a little bit. It's been, about 7 months or so since the end of the original movie, but it's still, very much, you want to make it look as close to the original as possible. And I will say they do a very good job with this. Bambi takes place in a forest. Forests change and stuff like that, and we only saw pieces of the forest in the original movie, so that one doesn't have to be quite as well matched. And Cinderella, we don't see that much of the inside of the castle in the original movie, so there's not as much that you have to follow in regards to strict guidelines of what is the same and what's not the same. certain things they still try to make sure that they keep, the same in regards to, well, this was the ballroom that it looked like, and this was the inside of Lady Tremaine's house and stuff like that. So it's, those things they try to match. But in Lady and the Tramp, because there's still a fair amount of it takes place inside the house, they still want to do that. I forgot to mention this in the first half of this video, or the first video, depending on how I edit this. Other names they had originally had for Tramp were Homer, and I believe one of the other ones was Bozo. I am so glad they went with Tramp, because Lady and the Bozo does not sound like a good name for a movie. And Lady and Homer, not so much. So yeah, Lady and the Tramp. But yeah, Tramp had gone through quite a few incarnations before they settled on what they wanted, and Lady had gone through a few different incarnations, as I explained. Yeah, difference between the Spinner Spaniel and the Cocker Spaniel, and such. And Tramp's just kind of supposed to be a mutt. Quite obviously he's supposed to be a mutt. There's aspects of other dogs in there, but. So Scamps in the backyard being punished and such, and Lady and the Tramp are looking out at him from the stained glass window that's on the stairs. And we get this great bit of Tramp and Lady talking, saying, he needs to learn how to follow the rules of the house. And and this is very much a dichotomy for Tramp, saying this. He was like, firm discipline molds a pup into a dog. And Lady goes, you turned out okay. And he goes, yeah, Pidge, but I had you. And I found love. And if I hadn't done that, then, I don't know where I'd be by now. You'd probably either be in the pound or dead. One of the two. Pound or dead. Unfortunately. We don't want Tramp dead or trapped in the pound, but, if he hadn't met Lady, Tramp goes out to talk to Scamp, and we get this great dichotomy of, Tramp saying, it's like, you don't know what it's like out there, and he's like, and Scamp's like, you're nothing like me, and then Tramp scratches, and then Scamp scratches, and they both have the same scratch. So it's like, you're nothing like me, you just imitated me, type thing. And Tramp goes like, what? Or Scamp's like, what are the point of teeth and claws if I can't use them? Because he's like, I don't like rules. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't climb on that. Don't do this. And, Tramp tries to, talk to him a little bit. And Tramp just gets fed up with him and storms back in the house. Scamp is very much like Tramp. It's kind of the whole, the inside looking out as opposed to the outside looking in. Then we get a bunch of junkyard dogs running around in the alley behind their house. They're messing with one of the dog catchers. The dog catcher is basically based on Don Knotts. So if you've ever seen, the Andy Griffith Show, Mayberry, that type of a thing, he's based on that type of a concept of that type of the Don Knotts character, Barty Fife as the dog catcher. And I'm just like, there's just great lines that he gets. Like the dogs are playing with him. It's like, well, no, that's not fair. That is funny. They do a great job with that, and even kind of looks like him. A bunch of dogs. There's I think there's a Great Dane in there. There's this other little cute dog. There's a small little English or a bulldog or a pit bull. Well, it's not a pit bull. It's like a bulldog, and like a couple of other dogs, like big sheepdog and stuff like that. And they kind of tease Scamp a little bit because he's trapped in the yard and he wants to get out. And then after they leave, after they, mess with the dog catcher, there's this cute little mutt pup. Her name's Angel. We find that out later. She's adorable. And Tramp kind of just develops this crush on her instantly. And then we get a whole bit of, Tramp singing about, I don't want to, a world without fences. So it's him fantasizing about getting to run with this other pack of dogs, getting to bark wherever he wants, do whatever he wants, has this whole free reign of everything. This whole world without fences where he can roam free. That's pretty much the quote from the song. And he, gets off the chain. And he gets out of the fence and he goes off. Lady finds that he's gone, runs back in the house, tells Scamp, and then and that's too late at night for them to go looking. But Scamp wanders off and tries to follow the dogs, and he finds the girl dog in an alley and attempts to flirt with her. Does not go well. Rooting around in the trash, and she just basically shows him up. And at one point, he tried rooting around in the trash, and he had like a banana peel over his nose, and he's just like, "Hi, banana peel on your nose." She basically shows him up and everything, and then she leads him back to the junkyard, she kind of tries to ditch him because she's like, this is no place for a house dog. And he follows her back to the junkyard where we get the whole junkyard dogs with Buster is the leader. He's the big black Great Dane. I think he's a Great Dane. Most of the dogs are probably much to a degree, but I think Buster is supposed to be a Great Dane, big black dog. And if I'm wrong and he's not a Great Dane, then I'm sorry. I apologize. Some dog species I know, some dogs I don't. And Scamp wants to join the junkyard dogs because he sees them having all this fun, and he thinks, oh, this will be a great place for me to be. And Buster's like, okay, well, let's give you a test. They end up in an alley with a freaking giant, probably fairly rabid dog named Reggie. He's supposed to get a tin can from the alley. Reggie almost kills Scamp, and Scamp ends up saving Angel in the process of the dog chasing him, and lots of other things happen, and he proves himself, and Reggie gets caught by the dog catcher. We get the whole bit of Angel and Scamp that night. We get the whole bit of like them bonding more, and she's she explains to him that I had a family once and it was great, or I've had multiple families where it was great, and I thought maybe this time is when I get to stay, and a new baby or an allergy or they move or something. And Angel doesn't seem to be very old. She doesn't seem to be that much of an age difference from Scamp. So that's a lot in a very short life for a dog to go through. I understand the circumstances come up and that it was a slightly different time, but still, if you're not going to want to keep the dog, then don't get it in the first place. And, so they go and this whole adventure and everything. And earlier that day, we get cut back to the Darling household where Lady and Tramp, where Lady and Tramp and Jacques and Trusty, because Jacques and Trusty are, of course, still there. They're going off to try to find Scamp, and his three sisters are like, we don't even want him back. I'm sure when he gets back, he's going to get, punished or whatever. And like at one point, one of the sisters has to say something very mean about Scamp, and she just looks at Lady, who's just like glaring at her. She's like, sorry, Mom, we really do miss him. Please don't hurt me. And Trusty's still the same thing. He's still kind of living off the high of tracking down the carriage from the end of the last movie where where they track down Tramp. And so he's still living off that high. And Jocks is just like, yeah, there'll be no living with him. And we get this funny bit of Tramp going, I've got half the, I've got twice the cunning and the skill of like a dog half my age. And like none of the pups seem to know that their father had been like the king of the street dogs in their area. None of the pups know this. I would assume that's something that Tramp just basically didn't tell, Lady and him just didn't tell that to them. Because Scamp thinks that Tramp's been a house dog all his life. He doesn't know that Tramp was a street dog. They don't know that. The pups don't know that. If the pups knew that, then maybe Scamp wouldn't have wanted to be, a street dog so much if he knew all the hard times that it had to be. But that's kind of part of what the movie is about, Scamp learning that. And we get this great bit of, it's just more funny than anything. It's, Tramp says, I've got twice the skill and cunning of a dog half my age. And he tries jumping over the doghouse and gets stuck. He's just like, just using a few forgotten muscles. So it's like, sure. Like all the dogs laugh at him. And Lady's just like, um, and they all head off, and like Jim Deere is taking them to go look for Scamp because, of course, the family wants Scamp back, and they're searching all over the place. At one point, Trusty found Scamp's scent. Actually led them to like this wig that was in a river. Scamp was fine. He had, honestly, in Trusty's defense, Scamp had that wig on him earlier that day. So, it's like, okay, well, you still found the right scent, just unfortunately not the right thing. And, ladies just have, Tramp jumps into the river, pulls it out, and they're just like, oh, thank God it's not Scamp, it's a wig and such. And then, we have Angel and Scamp not too far away. They got chased by a train. And they kind of fell into the river. So, Trusty wasn't too far off. There's a great punchline with Trusty at the end of this that I'll get to. And we get, Lady or Angel and Scamp bonding a bit more. This is where he finds out that she had homes and that she wants a home. That she just kind of, butters up to Buster so she has at least a safe place to sleep at night, which makes sense. And we get this whole bit of, it's basically, the kid equivalent of Bellinotte from the original movie, where we have Angel and Scamp, just, having fun, bonding, falling in love, and, them wandering around, there's fireflies, there's pretty trees, there's all this fun stuff, and then they end up at Tony's restaurant, and, Tony and Joe kind of give them the same meal that they had for Lady and the Tramp, and my answer is, okay, they've had Tramp and Lady and the Darling family walk by their restaurant multiple times, possibly even had Darling and Jim Deere eat at the restaurant. So you would think they would recognize Scamp. So you'd think that they would be like, oh, well, this is Tramp's son. He looks just like Tramp, and he, how about we, I don't know, call the Darling family and say, why don't we, I'll give them food. You run over to the Darling family and tell them that, we found their dog. Admittedly, Joe and Tony may not know that Scamp is missing, so, they give them the same meal. And as I said, we get the parody of it. And the animators for the movie are just like, well, how can we do this? Because they're pups, so they're not going to eat as daintily as Lady does. So we get this funny bit of, Tramp trying to be cute, where he rolls a meatball over, before they start eating, he tries to bite, and Angel just giving him this look like, ladies first, you idiots, type thing. Well, maybe not you idiot, but like, ladies first. And he like rolls a meatball, and then she just like, and just like the dog just like gobbling up the food, as opposed to them daintily eating the food, which is just adorable. So it's like that parody of that, and they they end up wandering into the neighborhood, of course, where Scamp is from, and they're roaming about, and they end up across the street from their house, from where from Scamp's house, and like Jim Deere left the gate open. He's like, Jim Deere never leaves this gate open, and he and like then they hear Jim Deere and Lady and Tramp coming down, and Scamp heard earlier that day about the best street dog that had ever been, and it's Tramp. And Tramp and Buster used to be friends. And, which, I mean, we don't see Buster in the original movie, and unfortunately we don't get to see Peg make a return in this movie, although that would have been nice to know that, like, maybe Peg got a home or something. Peg or some of the other dogs from the pound got a home would have been nice. Buster was very, very angry about Tramp going off and being with Lady, because it's like, you can't be a junkyard dog and have a family. And, it's like, your troubles are your own troubles. He left me for a dame, and Scamp, via how they're talking about Tramp, he was like, he escaped these dog catchers, and he, like, jumped off this waterfall instead of, becoming a house pet or being caught or whatever. And it's just like, oh, God. And, like, legends of Tramp. That sounds like not a good name for like a thing for a Disney movie, but if you know the context, it's like, okay. And like the junkyard dogs talk about like, oh, there was this one dog that was better than all the other dogs. His name was Tramp, and Scamp is just like, oh, frick. Lady and Tramp end up, coming by the same bush because like Angel and Scamp like ducked into this bush. Um, and well, Scamp pulled Angel into the bush. And Tramp smelled Scamp, and it's just bird flew out, and so he doesn't think that it's actually Scamp. And we get this bit of, Tramp's kind of dejected. They searched all day for Scamp, and they couldn't find anything, or they kept finding dead ends. And, he's worried about his son. Of course, Lady's worried about her son, too. And we get this bit where she goes, "You are the best street dog there ever was." And Angel and Scamp can hear this. And he's like, "Yeah, well, I wish the old Tramp was still here, because maybe that would help him find Scamp better." And Lady and Tramp head back into the house. And Angel's just like, "Your dad is Tramp?" And like they run up to look through the window, and they watch as Darling is holding Junior, and he's very sad because he loves Scamp and everything, and the three sisters are sad, and Lady and Tramp and Jim and Darling are of course still sad, and Darling is singing and such, trying to calm down Junior so that way he can sleep. And they have the picture that they took at the end of the last movie that's there for them, and they have Jim Jr. is holding that and everything, and Angel and Scamp are just watching, and Scamp's just thinking, I didn't know that they would miss me that much. And she's like, "You gave all this up? You didn't think they would miss you? I would give everything to have what you have." And he's like, "And I would give everything to have what you have." 'Cause, he's still angry about the fact of, there's all these rules and horrible things. And Angel's just like, "Yes, it must be so horrible to have people love you." I think part of the lesson this movie is trying to teach you is, if you're a kid and you don't feel like you have what you need at home, maybe reevaluate and don't run away. That's not saying like if you have a horrible home life with like abusive parents or something like that, that you shouldn't try to find a way out of it, as long as it's a safe way out of it. But if you have a loving family, there's a difference. And Angel and Scamp leave, and she's like, "You can't tell Buster that I said any of this. You can't tell Buster that I want to be a house pet, because he'll kick me out of the junkyard dogs." And he's like, I won't do that." And they head back to the junkyard, and then the next day is the 4th of July. And they're all, this huge 4th of July picnic festival, giant thing that they're having. Well, not giant thing, but big fun thing that they're having at the fairgrounds or whatever, the park. And, there's like parade, and ladies firing like sparkler arrows into stuff that are like, it's like very Victorian dress still. And, the family is there. And Aunt Sarah's there, and she has her cats, and the three the girl pups are still very sad, and Junior's sad, and Jim Deere and Tramp and Jim Deere seem to get along quite well, which is good. And Jim Deere's like, "Don't worry, Tramp. Well, I feel like we should be out looking for Scamp right now." And Aunt Sarah's like, "Oh, just don't worry about it. He'll be fine. Come and eat this giant chicken." I'm like, "Why are you bringing your cats to a place with a ton of dogs, lady?" Buster and all the other junkyard dogs are looking over from the bushes at all the different families, and Buster spots Tramp and Lady and their family, and sees Tramp scratch, and then he looks over at Scamp, who does the same thing. He's like, "I knew it." And he tells Scamp, "This is your last test to become a junkyard dog. You go and steal that bird from that family." He's like, "What do you mean, that family? That family over there? No, this family right here. And you do that, and you're a junkyard dog." Angel tries to get him to not do it, and that doesn't go well. And Scamp was like, okay, and he goes and he, jumps into the thing, like, all the siblings, his sisters and his mom and Junior are very happy to see him, and like he grabs the bird and runs off, and Tramp tries to corner him, then he runs off, and all the other junkyard dogs start attacking, well, not attacking, but like taking the food from all the humans that are there and everything, and just chaos ensues. And Scamp runs off and runs and runs and runs, and Tramp chases him and kind of corners him in an alley. And what happens is, Tramp kind of, corners Scamp, and he's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I just want to talk. Just want to talk. And, and they talk a little bit, and Scamp's just like, it's great being out here. There's no rules. I can do whatever I want, blah, 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 blah. I'm a junkyard dog. And that's when the others show up, and they watch, Buster and Tramp get to have this confrontation, and it's just like, you left me and everything. And he's like, I fell in love. Tramp's just like, I fell in love. It looks like, when I met your mother, Buster just got jealous, and, just like, Buster just, gets, blows up at Tramp, and we get the whole bit of, Scamp has to choose between going with Tramp and going back home, or joining the Junkyard Dogs. And Scamp chooses to join the Junkyard Dogs. And Tramp says to him, well, our gate will always be open to you. He loves his son. Of course, he wants his son to come back home, but he'll let Scamp make his own decisions. And, Tramp's getting ready to leave. And there's this great dichotomy that they do with Buster and Tramp, because in the original movie, we know that Tramp is quite good at opening gates, or at the very least, the little, lock picks. He's quite good at doing that when it comes to, opening fences and gates and stuff like that. Buster, we see, has a hard time with this. He can't do it. And Buster makes this comment of, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And it's just this subtle thing that they do. Because, like, he can't get the gates open, so he always has to have, like, this big sheepdog, like, ram the gate to get it open. And Tramp just, like, kind of looks back over at him and uses his nose to, That was not a good demonstration of that. I'm sorry. Uses his nose to, pop the gate open. Pop the pin on the gate open so that way he can go through the gate, and it just makes all the other junkyards and, impresses Scamp. He's just like, Buster can do that. How can my dad do that? What the? And Buster then rips Scamp's collar off. Scamp's had his collar on the entire time. After the chain broke, he still had his collar on. And Buster just kind of like rips it off of his neck. The collar's still in one piece, but it's off Scamp. And they all head back to the junkyard, and Buster, Scamp's super happy, Buster's happy, they're all playing around and everything. Angel is the only one that's not happy, and she scolds Scamp and says, you can't do this, you have to go back to your dad, you have to go and apologize, you have to go back home, you can't be here, you're good, you're decent, and the streets will beat you out, but beat that out of you. And that results in Scamp blabbing about the fact, well, if you want a family, then you go find your own. Which, then that makes, Buster kind of kick Angel out. Well, she kind of chooses to leave at this point in time. And Angel leaves, and she just like, because Buster kept calling her his girl. And Angel's just like, oh, and Buster, I'm not your girl. And she leaves. And Scamp feels bad, and he runs after her to apologize. And Buster ends up basically getting this dog catcher to go after Scamp because he wants to teach Scamp a lesson and kind of punish Tramp at the same time. Tramp gets caught by the dog catcher, and he's like, yeah, slick move, me without a collar, I'm so stupid. And he gets, taken back, he gets on his way to the dog catcher, and we get this great song, and there are, there's songs throughout Lady and the Tramp too, of course. There's a big song at the beginning that's, everybody's singing about, getting ready for this giant 4th of July party, and this, this is our happy home and everything. and you know, Tramp singing "No Fences," you know, "A World Without Fences." Angel and Tramp's song where it's, you know, I didn't know it could feel this way or whatever when it comes to, you know, them falling in love. And then we get this bit of, you know, all of them singing about being, you know, what they want in a home. You know, Tramp or Scamp singing in the back of the dog catcher's carriage, which has been upgraded to actually a car at this point in time. It's no longer horse drawn. And, you know, so Tramp or Scamp is singing about what that, you know, what his home was like. You know, why did I leave that? You know, what it was all like. Angel's wanting, you know, singing about, you know, what would it be like to have a home. And we get, you know, Tramp and Lady to a degree, and they're a bit singing too about, you know, home isn't quite right without Scamp there. And even, you know, Jim Deere and Darling and Junior do kind of seem to feel that way too. And we get this great dichotomy of the three different experiences of, you know, I want my, you know, Angel with, I don't know what a home feels like, but I want one. Scamp with, I know what a home feels like and I lost it, and why did I do that? And Lady and Tramp singing about, you know, home doesn't feel right without Scamp there, because not everyone's home. And after, you know, at the end of the song, Angel sees, you know, that Scamp's in the back of the, back of the dog catcher's wagon, or dog catcher's car. Not a wagon anymore, it's a car. And she's just, and she like runs back to Lady in the Tramp's house, and she's like, okay, no, I know where Scamp is. You have to come with me. He's at the pound. We have to go now. And they get to the, you know, and we get this great bit of, you know, Tramp following her, and they're running toward the pound. And unfortunately, Scamp gets thrown into the same cell where Reggie is. And that resulted in, you know, him trying to, you know, get away from Reggie and everything. And Scamp and, or Tramp and Angel show up. And, you know, Tramp gets very angry, of course, at Reggie because he's attacking his son. And he's like, don't you dare touch my boy. And, you know, then Scamp tries to fight back too. You know, after Tramp takes a hit, he's like, well, don't you dare hurt my father. Or don't you lay a paw on my pops, or whatever it was. And we get this great bit of, you know, Tramp and Scamp fighting against Reggie, and they get Reggie knocked out. And unfortunately, Scamp kind of gets hit against a wall, so he's kind of unconscious for a little bit. Or he gets waken up. So it's, you know, it's kind of the whole bit from like Bambi too, where it's like, you know, the great prince of the forest thinks for a few seconds, or thinks for a little bit. You know, everyone thinks, oh no, you know, Bambi's dead when he's like a baby, when he's a fawn still. After the dog attack this, you know, oh no, you know, Tramp thinking, oh no, you know, Scamp's dead. And Scamp wakes up, and he gets this great bit of like looking up at his dad, and like there's fireworks going off in the background throughout this whole sequence. And so it's like, apparently the pound doesn't really have much of a roof, or if it does, it's very you know, slanted and broken, because, you know, we see the fireworks going off behind it. We get this great image of like Tramp with like fireworks going off above him, like, yes, he is the hero. And so Tramp and Scamp and Angel head back to, you know, to the Darling household, so Scamp can go home. Well, first they make a detour when they're on their way out of the pound. Jacques and Trusty show up because Trusty has been following his nose this whole time, for this whole rest of the day apparently, trying to find Scamp. And we get a great bit of him going, I found him, I most assuredly have found him. And Jock's just like, you haven't found anything. And a great bit of like Jock realizing when Scamp is there, and it is Scamp, and he's like berating Trusty. He was like, yeah, it wasn't found. It was like, been 3 wigs and 5 cats and blah blah blah, and, you know, 5 flying pigs and a wildebeest. And I'm like, first of all, where did the wildebeest come from and the pigs? And why is this not a side short? Because that would be funny. Of just, you know, Jacques and Trusty's day of trying to find Tramp, of trying to find Scamp. I would just find that a hilarious bit that they could have done. And like, you know, it's like, oh, we found Scamp and everything. And then he's like, you know, it's like, well, we got one more stop we have to make, and then we can go home. And they go to the junkyard. And Scamp gets his collar back and basically, you know, shoves it to Buster saying, no, 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 I'm going to, even if I am a house pet, I don't care. I have my family. I have a home. And, and he gets his collar back. And Buster kind of gets his comeuppance a bit. And they leave, and the rest of the junkyard dogs decide, maybe a home sounds nice. And they all head off to go find a home, and Buster's kind of left alone in the junkyard. And, Lady or Tramp and Scamp and Jock and Trusty head back home like angels with them. And they get back to the house, and like everyone comes out, and they're so happy to see Scamp and everything. And they're just like, Tramp or Scamp's like, he brings Angel on, or brings Angel up so they can see her. And like Jim Deere and Darling are just like, did you help our little Scamp out there on those rough streets? And she's very shy at this point in time because she doesn't know what they're Scamp's family, but that doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily accept her. Junior just basically kind of falls in love with her instantly, and he's like, she's so cute, she's like a perfect little, and like Darling must have like a sixth sense when it comes to like naming dogs, because she's like, okay, she got Lady right, and they apparently knew what to name Tramp, because they just named him Tramp. That's what they called him. So it's just like, does like Darling have like a sixth sense when it comes to naming animals, because she knew what to name Tramp? And the pups are one thing, because it was like, okay, well, the pups are ours, we can name them what we want, and then that's what their name will be. And then she's like, what a sweet little angel. And then Junior just started calling her Angel. And Ginger, and she's just like, look at Ginger, do you think we could? And he's like, no, we have enough dogs. And like, we get this pan across of like all the dogs, like Jacques and Trusty and the daughters and Scamp, and like Angel's down here, and Lady and the Tramp and the other daughter are just like you just get like this whole chorus of nothing but puppy dog eyes staring at you. You will cave so quickly. You will cave so quickly. And Jim Deere does. He caves. And he's like, fine. Welcome to the family, Angel. And then she gets a bath and a nice pretty ribbon, so it's a whole family celebrating. And then the ending bit is like Scamp in the bathtub, like getting scrubbed, and he's just like, I will do this because it means I get to be at home. And then like when we get the pan out shot, we get to see the other dogs, the junkyard dogs, kind of just like finding humans and like basically dumping, you will be my human now. And the humans just like taking them in. So it's just like, yay, the other junkyard dogs have families now. In regards to, as I said, I was going to mention kind of the cast list for this. And we get, Scamp, one of his nicknames is Whirlwind by Tramp, and Tenderfoot by Angel. She keeps calling him Tenderfoot. And he is voiced by Scott Wolf, the actor. Angel is voiced by Alyssa Milano, from Who's the Boss and Charmed. Not too much for most of the other characters. I mean, it's just like a lot of like, voice actors that tend to do a lot of different things. Although in regards to, because like we have like Jeff Bennett as Tramp, and he's been in so many different things. Just pick an animated series, or pick a movie, or a video, or animated movie that's not, extremely big budget or something like that, or a video game, and Jeff Bennett was probably something in it. And we get Jodie Benson, aka the voice of Ariel, as Lady, which is adorable, because she just has that same warm voice and everything that you need for Lady. And the three daughters are actually voiced by two actors. Debbie Derryberry voices two of them, I believe, and then Kath Susie voices the third one. Because if I remember correctly, Debbie Derryberry, she's voiced quite a few things. So just like look her up and just like scan through her Wikipedia page, and you'll see, oh yeah, she's voiced a ton of stuff. She's a ton of different things. We get all the, Jim Deere and Darling and everything, and we have Aunt Sarah, and she's voiced by Tress MacNeille, so just kind of think Dot from Animaniacs, or Mom from Futurama. Yeah, not too much there. I mean, there's not too much, too much with that. Yeah, and then we get into live action. And the live action came out in live action one came out in 2019 on Disney Plus. It still follows the same basic premise, although it's a bit more of an eclectic cast than the original one is. Um, and because Jim Deere and Darling are an interracial couple, as opposed to just both being white, and that doesn't seem to be. It still takes place in the same time frame, still 1910, so it's kind of more an idealized version of America because nobody seems to have a problem with this type of a relationship in that time frame. So I think it's supposed to be a more of idealized version of what it should have been. Lady is still the same type of dog. We still have Jacques. We still have Trusty. Although Jacques is Jacqueline and is a girl. Her owner is a very eccentric painter that likes to use her and lots as the model for a lot of different things. So she has like a lot of different like costumes and everything. I'm pretty sure at various points in time throughout the movie, for the live action one, they do have actual dogs, and then of course they have digital versions of the dogs when it comes to making the dogs talk, or when it comes to making the dogs do certain things. And a dog is not normally going to do that. And so we have that. We have Lady and Jim Deere and Darling have their baby. And we get a little bit more with Aunt Sarah in this one. She is a little bit more antagonistic at times. We still have Lady having to deal with the whole thing of, what is a baby and what's all this new stuff coming into the house and everything. Although, slight difference, this one, this Lady and the Tramp is actually set on the streets of New Orleans as opposed to in like New England. So a bit of a dichotomy there. So we get a little bit more music and everything out on the streets a bit more. I get a bit more with Aunt Sarah. She still doesn't like Lady, and she still thinks cats are much better than dogs. And she ends up. I like the fact that at least in this one, Aunt Sarah kind of gets her comeuppance. But we're not quite there yet. We get Tramp's actually the one that explains more about babies to Lady. He's still very much, the street dog and everything, and Peg, and Peg's still there, and Tramp's, the dog catcher is a bit more determined in this one than he was in the original, than they have him set in the original. I mean, there's not really too much that's any differences in the story, or super big differences in the story. There's a little bit. For instance, Jim Deere and Darling's baby is actually a girl that they named Lulu. And when, when they're going off on their little trip to go see Jim's sister, they actually take the baby with them. So it's just Aunt Sarah is there to babysit Lady, or house sit and dog sit. And she, of course, brings her horrible little cats, who are a lot worse than this one. Much more into breaking things and such. And, of course, that results in, Lady getting blamed, even though Lady's trying to stop them. And, Aunt Sarah, who is played wonderfully by Yvette Nicole Brown, who's great, takes her to go and get a muzzle. Kudos to the guy at the shop. He was trying not to have to give Lady a muzzle. Unfortunately, gets the muzzle on. Her collar gets taken off when they try to put the muzzle on her. And she freaks out. She gets out of the store. And she runs off. And that's when Tramp spots her. And he helps prevent her from getting hurt by this random street dog. And then he helps her, instead of it being like an actual beaver in this case, it's just like a statue of a beaver that they use to get the harness off, get the muzzle off. Side note, instead of them being Siamese cats, they're Devon Rexes, which I don't really exactly know 100% what type of cats those are. So they're not, Siamese, they're not Cy and Am, they're Devon and Rex are Aunt Sarah's cats. And then, of course, we get Lady and Tramp, Lady learning a little bit more about, being on the street and everything. And Tramp, they have a bit more of an antagonistic relationship at the beginning for this one. He's still trying to help her get back home and everything. And, you know, they have to sneak onto a boat, and then they have to make their way to, they're still trying to make their way through to get her back home, and they have to keep avoiding the dog catcher. And the dog catcher, as I said, he's a bit more prominent in this one, along with the rat being a bit more prominent in regards to being more antagonistic for Lady to deal with. And, so we get a lot of that. They still do the Bella Notte sequence where they end up at the Tony's restaurant, which is a bit funnier this time around because we get it's just funnier this time around because we get where it's like they're really busy inside, and they still end up giving like Tramp and Lady spaghetti, but we get like this couple look out from the window and like they see the two of them like giving the dog spaghetti and everything, and the lady's just like, "But you said they were out of the special." It's just like funny. And we still get the moment with the dogs eating the spaghetti and everything, and Tramp still kind of takes Lady up on this ridge to show her the town and everything. So, a slight bit that I missed when I was talking about the live action Lady and the Tramp, I'm going to put it in here since it corresponds to this part of the movie. When Lady and the Tramp are sitting up on the hill looking out at the town, we get Tramp explaining that he had once had a family. And there's a quote of him that's basically him saying, "I had a family and I love them and they love me," over the sequence of what we watch in his flashback of him, being, the family had just had a baby and he gets taken into the car and gets driven to this alley, and the male owner takes off the leash and the collar, throws a ball, and Tramp chases the ball, and the owner jumps back in the car and drives off. And Tramp says he waited in that alley all day and all night, just waiting for his owner to come back. And his owner never came back, unfortunately. Some people just aren't good dog owners, and unfortunately Tramp's original family weren't good dog owners, and in his mind it was, the baby moves in and the dog moves out. That's basically the part of the little bit for Tramp's backstory that I missed. Most of the rest of the movie is the same as what I said. And back to that. And that doesn't go so well because they end up getting, chased by the dog catcher and some other guys that don't like Tramp, chasing him. And Tramp got cornered and Lady came back and helped him, and then Lady unfortunately ended up getting cornered and taken to the pound. And Tramp, kind of was trying to figure out why she came back to help him when he told her to just, go and save herself. And, Lady ends up at the pound, and she interacts with Peg, who is, she was a Pekingese in the original. I think she's a Lhasa Apso in this one. And she, we still get the whole, her singing "He's a Tramp" and it's great, and we get, all the other dogs there singing. It's just a fun sequence that they do with that. The dog, the Peg is adorable. Peg is adorable in both movies. Peg and Lady, and the first two dogs that I ever had were mutts, so I have no problem with mutts. I think they're adorable. And so, but, so we get that, and then, the dog catcher comes back, and he takes Lady out of the pen and takes her, and Jim, Dear, and Darling are there waiting for, to get her because, they had gotten back from their trip, and they're like, okay, where is Lady when they got back home? And, they went to the pound, and they got her. She didn't have a collar, so they probably just had to come in and, like, describe her to find out if she was there. They do still show the bit of, the dog being pulled in to take it into the back room, the one-way door, because, they still have to put that in there as part of the stakes. Not good. And they make, and Lady is taken home with Jim, Dear, and Darling, and Aunt Sarah gets a bit of her comeuppance because she actually gets kind of thrown out of the house a little bit because she's just like, you know, maybe I was a little too hard on her. And they're just like, yeah, you think? Bye. And they introduce Lady to Lulu, to the baby. And Lady just, she starts to get very attached to Lulu. And she has this great bit where and they get to do this great sequence first where it's like her, they go out on walks and they have Lulu's pram there, more stuff with them singing, Lady, maybe curling up next to Lulu at times. And Jacques and Trusty and Lady end up talking, and she's like, it's nice. I'm not the center of their world anymore, but it's bigger. Our world is bigger now, which is a great way of describing that. We get a little bit later. We get Tramp interacting with Peg and Bull. Bull is the English bulldog. We get them interacting with each other, and they have collars now. Bull and Peg have collars now, so indicating that they now have an owner. And it's the same owner, and he seems to be very good with them and everything. And Tramp is just like, why? And he's trying to figure it out, and he's just like, he gets sad because he hasn't seen Lady for a long time, and he sees Peg and Bull, and he realizes that he was in the wrong, so he goes to try and apologize to Lady. And he, tries and tries, and, it's kind of the same thing that happens. He tries to apologize to her, and that, she kind of accepts, kind of doesn't. It's a little bit vague, and she just asks him to leave. Well, no, she doesn't want him to leave. She wants him to stay. She still loves him, and she wants him to stay, but he doesn't want to. So he goes, and then the dog catcher shows up, and basically just kind of says, okay, I'm going to stay in this house type thing until, this dog shows up because, he'll show back up for whatever reason. And, Lady sees the rat get into the window, because the rat's going after the baby, of course. Why the rat's going after the baby, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just kind of old thing of, well, we need an antagonist, so we'll make it the rat. Same way that it was in the original movie. Although, in, original drafts of the scripts, the rat was, like, a comic relief character that was just, like, I don't know, like a friend or just part of the neighborhood or whatever. But, yeah, in this, they turn it more into, well, we need something there that can prove that Tramp's not a bad person, not a bad dog. So, Tramp does all, Lady sees the rat get into the house, so she, gets Jim Deere and Darling to bring her into the house, and the dog catcher's there, and he starts saying, well, she's a friend of that one of the dog. He's very obsessed with finding Tramp. He's very obsessed with catching Tramp. That does not go. Lady kind of gets put back in the cupboard, and she kind of, Tramp hears her barking because she's trying to get to the, Tramp comes back because he hears her barking, and there is the storm starting, of course, and he's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? She's like, the rat got into the house, it's going to go after the baby. It's in the baby's room. And he, so he kind of sneaks into the house past the, the dog catcher and Jim Deere and Darling, makes his way up to Lulu's room, and we get basically the same chase sequence of him trying to catch the mouse or catch the rat and everything. Unfortunately, still the crib gets knocked over, but Tramp makes sure that Lulu is okay. She kind of starts crying, of course, because it's very just jolted out of, if she was asleep or whatever. Just don't blame her for start crying and everything. And, he still gets hurt from trying to, get the rat, and he does get the rat. And that's when, all of the Jim Deere, Darling, and the dog catcher, whose name is Elliot, I believe, from what they say, and they all run upstairs, and they find Tramp in the baby's room, which, I don't blame them for being like, why is there a random dog in our baby's room? And they think that he was trying to attack the baby, and he wasn't, of course. He was trying to kill the rat. And so then, Elliot, the dog catcher, drags Tramp out, who's hurt. He hurt one of his paws, and trying to protect Lulu. And he gets dragged out, and then Lady gets out, and she runs upstairs, and she shows them the dead rat. And then she runs out to go after Tramp. And Jock and Trusty are coming after her, and they're explaining, no, there was a rat. He was trying to protect the baby from the rat, and they chase after the wagon, and we get the whole bit of Trusty having to trust his sense of smell to find them, and that works. And we have Jacques and Trusty both have to come over their overcome their own problems, of course, and they get through that, and they find the carriage, and they end up chasing the carriage down, and it gets knocked over and everything, and Tramp gets knocked out, and Lady, he had been trying to get Lady to howl a bit more in the movie at one point when they're up on the ridge and everything, because she's never really howled. And we get them, Lady starts howling in order to try to wake Tramp up because she thinks he's dead, and he's not, and he does wake up. And Jim Deere and Darling arrive with Lulu, and they're just like, okay, well, I guess, he tried to protect the baby, and the dog catcher is ready to drag Tramp off to take him to the dog, to take him to the pound to be put down, because, a dog attacks a human, they have to put it down. And they're just like, and Darling just like steps up, and she's like, no. My dog is apparently arguing with this, if you hear the barking in the background. She's like, no, he has a family. He has a home. His home is with us. And the dog catcher is just like giving her this look like, what is wrong with you, lady? And Jim Deere is a little bit, it takes him a couple of seconds, then he's like, yeah, his home is with us. And they get they get Tramp to come over to them, and they decide to adopt him so he doesn't, get put down. And then we cut to Christmas. By the next Christmas, fully accepted into the family, has his own collar, and is, now, full member of the Darling family. Darling Deers, whatever they call them. And Jacques' owner has adopted 2 puppies from the pound, Dodgy and Oli. Dodge and Oli. She adopted, her owner adopted them. And, as she said, it's like, our world's bigger, which I think is a cute way of, describing that. So we get a lot of that, and Lady and Tramp are very happy, of course, and Trusty and Jacques and the 2 new little puppies are happy, and they're adorable. And, it's still the same idea of, get the fade out, the beautiful houses and everything. One thing that they do mention about Jim Deere is that he is actually a musician in this. Let's see here. In regards to some of the cast, there's not too many that I recognize. Yvette Nicole Brown, of course, was Aunt Sarah. Not too much. Ken Jeong makes an appearance as the doctor that delivers Lulu. Not too much there. In regards to the voices, those are the live action people, of course, the owners and stuff. In regards to the voices, we have Tessa Thompson as Lady, and she, of course, you would know her as Valkyrie from the Marvel Universe, from the Thor Ragnarok and from Endgame. And she was also in Men in Black International, again with Chris Hemsworth. Sam Elliott plays the Bloodhound, plays Trusty. It was a very deep voice and everything. We get Janelle Monáe as Peg. Yeah, and she is a Lhasa Apso. Benedict Wong plays Bull, the Bulldog. You would recognize him as Wong from Doctor Strange, and he's also been in a few other things. Clancy Brown is in it. There's not too much. They had a fair amount of very good voice actors come in to play the dogs. They actually kind of give Tramp a breed in this. He is a Schnauzer Mutt hybrid. Mostly because I think they needed to at least find something that they could use to base the animation off of and cast a real dog or multiple real dogs in. So we get a fair amount of, very good actors and actresses to play the parts in this movie. Some of them to play it up a little bit more for laughs in certain cases. And Yvette Nicole Brown does a great job as Aunt Sarah, and Tessa Thompson does a great job as lady, and I think that's adorable. I have no idea if they're planning on doing a Lady and the Tramp 2 Scamps Adventure. Admittedly, if they do, you can always get Alyssa Milano to come back and play, Angel again. She's still perfectly around. Not saying that they have to. I'm just saying they could always do that. Justin Theroux plays Tramp. I don't really know him from that many things. I know that he's been in quite a few things. It's just not too many that I'm super familiar with. There's, a lot of fun stuff that they do with the movies, and they bring in the songs and everything. He's a Tramp, gets a bit of a new flair. And Janelle Monáe does a great job performing that. They bring a lot of the, because it takes place in New Orleans, as I said, as opposed to the original movie that takes place in New England. So we get a lot of these great, jazz background music and everything. And I just think they did a great job with it. I very much liked it, and of course, I very much loved the sequel, Lady and the Tramp 2: Scamps Adventure, that, as I said, came out in 2001. They did a great job on the revoicing on that. The animation is still beautiful. The story still works great, in my opinion. They just, I love Lady and the Tramp. Rainey was a pound dog that we got, and we love him. He's a pain in the butt at times, but we love him. I have no problem with mutts. I think mutts are fine. They're adorable. I'll just do this as like a PSA at the end. If you want a dog, go to the pound. There are tons of dogs at the pound that need homes. That have either been on the streets and they need a home, or if you don't want a dog, get a cat or something else that they have at the pound. I'm sure you'll find something there. Give a dog or a cat or a rabbit or whatever that they have at the pound a home, because sometimes that's all they need is a home. And sometimes having them around is just as good for you as it is for them. That's my PSA, and just stick with the Bob Barker. I hope this doesn't get anything taken down, but spay and neuter your pets, or at least be cautious of what you let them around. Give your pets love. If it's nice outside, take your pet for a walk. If it's horrible outside, give them lots of love. If it's just not a safe time to go outside. That's basically what we have for this. So I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the rest of this video. The next one will be Sleeping Beauty, which that's going to be a fun thing to do, because we have the original movie. Thankfully, there are no animated sequels. We have the original movie. We have bits in House of Mouse. It's a fairly good chunk of Kingdom Hearts deals with that, mostly with Maleficent. And then, of course, we have the 2 Maleficent live-action movies. That's going to be fun to deal with. That might be a 2-video one. We'll see. Might be like all the animated and Kingdom Hearts in one, and then the 2 live-action Maleficent movies in another video. We'll see how that goes. So we'll see about that. As I said, I thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you like it, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye!
Yeah, Pidge, but I found you. And if it weren't for you, I'd have wound up in the pound. I'm just trying to protect him. He'll understand someday.